Somewhere inside a palace archive, there is a letter, written by hand, in Diana's own words. A letter so honest, so raw, so devastating in what it reveals, that the most powerful royal institution in the world did everything in its power to make sure you never read it. They couldn't burn it. They couldn't deny it existed. But they could bury it, delay it, discredit the woman who wrote it. And for years, that is exactly what they did. Because this letter was not about protocol or royal duties or palace politics. This letter was Diana telling the truth. About her marriage. About the affair. About what was being done to her inside those palace walls. And about something far darker. Something that, when it finally came to light, made the world stop breathing for a moment. Diana wrote that she believed her life was in danger. And she named the people she held responsible. This is the story of the letter Diana wrote. The letter the palace tried to destroy. And the reason it changes everything we thought we knew. Welcome to North Wire. To understand the letter, you have to understand where Diana was when she wrote it. It was the mid-1990s. The fairy tale was officially over. The separation from Charles had been announced in 1992. The divorce was finalized in 1996. Diana had been stripped of her HRH title, a deliberate, calculated act of institutional punishment that she felt deeply and publicly. But Diana was not broken. She was clear-eyed. More clear-eyed, perhaps, than she had ever been. She had spent years inside the machinery of the royal family. She had watched how it operated. She had felt what it did to people who stepped out of line. She had experienced firsthand the gap between the palace's public image and its private reality. And she had started to document it, not recklessly, not as an act of revenge, but carefully, deliberately, as someone who understood that the truth needed a record. Diana kept notes, she recorded conversations, she wrote letters to the people she trusted most, and in one of those letters, written to her butler and most trusted confidant, Paul Burrell, she said something so extraordinary, that when it eventually became public, it sent shockwaves through the monarchy that are still being felt today. Paul Burrell had served Diana for over a decade. He was not just her butler. He was her protector, her confidant, her anchor in a world that often felt designed to isolate her. Diana trusted Burrell with things she trusted almost nobody else with. And approximately 10 months before she died, she sat down and wrote him a letter. The letter was handwritten, personal, deeply intimate in the way that only a communication between two people who truly trust each other can be. In it, Diana spoke about her fears. She wrote that she was certain her telephone calls were being monitored, that she was being watched, that people within the institution, people with access and power, were keeping tabs on her movements, her relationships, her plans. This was not paranoia. Diana had good reason to believe this. It later emerged that her telephone conversations had indeed been intercepted and recorded. The so-called Squidgygate tapes being just one public example of surveillance that went far beyond what was publicly acknowledged. But the most chilling part of the letter, the part that stopped the world when it came to light, was what Diana wrote next. She wrote that she believed an accident was being planned for her. Specifically, she wrote of a car accident. She named no names directly, but she described, with calm and deliberate clarity, her belief that those around her wished to see her gone, that her death by apparent accident would solve a problem that her life created. She wrote it down, sealed it, and gave it to the man she trusted most to keep it safe. Diana died in a car accident in Paris in August 1997. In the weeks that followed, as the world drowned in grief, Paul Burrell kept the letter. He kept many of Diana's personal belongings and documents. A decision that would eventually land him in the center of one of the most extraordinary royal scandals of the modern era. In 2001, Burrell was arrested and charged with stealing over 300 items belonging to Diana, the Prince of Wales, and Prince William. The trial was one of the most anticipated in years. The world expected revelations, secrets, the kind of courtroom testimony that would blow open the carefully managed story the palace had constructed around Diana's life and death. And then something happened that the legal world still talks about. The trial collapsed. Not because Burrell was found innocent, not because the evidence was weak. It collapsed because Queen Elizabeth herself intervened. The Queen told prosecutors that she had personally spoken to Burrell years earlier, that he had informed her he was keeping certain items safe. The revelation came at a moment that, by extraordinary coincidence, was perfectly timed to prevent Burrell from taking the witness stand. The witness stand where he would have spoken, under oath, about the letter, about everything Diana had told him, about what she had feared and documented and preserved for exactly this kind of moment. The trial ended, Burrell walked free, and the letter and everything it contained never became part of a formal public record. Let us be precise about what we are saying here, and what we are not saying. We are not saying Diana was murdered. That is a conclusion that official investigations, including an extensive French inquiry and the British Operation Paget, have not supported. What we are saying is something arguably more disturbing. Diana believed she was in danger. She documented that belief in writing, 10 months before she died, in exactly the kind of accident she described, and the institution, that had every reason to want that document buried, used its considerable power to ensure it never became part of the official record. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a documented sequence of events. The letter existed. Burrell confirmed it. It was read aloud in court by the prosecuting barrister before the trial collapsed. Its contents became partially public despite the palace's best efforts, and Diana's own words, written in her own hand, addressed to the man she trusted most, described a premonition so specific and so chilling that it has never been satisfactorily explained away. What do we do with that? The palace's answer has always been, nothing. Move on. The inquiries have spoken, but Diana's answer, written 10 months before she died, was something different. She wrote it down so that someone, someday, would have to answer for it. Paul Burrell has spent the years since Diana's death in an impossible position. He wrote books. He gave interviews. He shared portions of what Diana told him with a public that was desperate to understand the woman they had lost. The palace and the royal family responded with fury. Prince William and Prince Harry both publicly condemned Burrell's decision to speak out, calling it a betrayal of their mother's trust. And yet, the letter Burrell preserved, the letter Diana wrote with full knowledge of what she was doing, was itself an act of deliberate documentation. Diana was not naive. She did not write those words casually. She wrote them because she wanted them to exist. Because she wanted a record. The question of whether sharing that record honors or betrays Diana's memory is one that reasonable people disagree on. But the existence of the letter itself, what it says, what it predicted, and what the palace did to prevent its full contents from becoming public, is not a matter of interpretation. It happened. Diana saw something. She felt something. She was frightened enough to put it in writing and trust it to the person she relied on most. And 10 months later, she was gone. There is something unbearable about reading Diana's words in that letter, not because they are dramatic, not because they are the words of a woman in crisis, but because they are so calm. Diana did not write in panic. She did not write in anger. She wrote with the quiet, devastating clarity of a woman who had looked at her situation with open eyes, and decided that the truth deserved to exist, somewhere, even if the world was not ready for it. She was 35 years old when she wrote those words. She had 2 sons she loved more than anything. She had work she believed in, a future she was building, plans that stretched years ahead, and she wrote down, in her own hand, that she was afraid she would not live to see them. Whether that fear was a premonition, a rational assessment of real threats, or something in between, we may never fully know. What we know is this. Diana wrote the letter because she wanted the truth to survive even if she did not. And here we are, nearly 3 decades later, still reading it, still asking the questions she needed us to ask, still refusing to let it be buried. That is the thing about Diana's truth. No matter how hard the palace tried to destroy it, it keeps coming back. Subscribe to North Wire, because Diana's story is not over. And neither are the questions she left behind. Thank you for watching North Wire. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications. New royal stories daily. The crown has secrets. We uncover them. See you in the next one.